So let's talk food. And one of those things about food is meal times, family meal times. Now there's the thing. When you're thinking about those times when you were growing up and those meal times, what did you eat? Was dinner lunch or was dinner at tea time? What did you call it? What did you have? And what kind of things did you do at meal times? What kind of rituals did you have? Habits are really interesting to recall when you think about food and meals. So you might want to ask yourself and others, where did your family eat meals? Did you eat them on your lap in the living room? Did you eat them at the table in the kitchen? Were you grand and have a dining table to eat at? Who was usually there at meal times? Family members, neighbours, people visiting? How did it work? Did people have particular places around the meal table? For example, did Dad have the head of the family table, or was it Mum who brought the food in? Do you remember the china or utensils? We've got lots here of things that we used, but these are all play plates and play cutlery. But maybe you had very nice china, or maybe you had a set for best and a set for every day. This is plastic, so you can drop it and it won't break. Have a think though, because lots of people used to have a collection and sometimes they were given it when they got married and that would carry on through their life. Who did the cooking, the cleaning and the washing up after the meals? How did that work? Maybe if you grew up in a religious family, you had prayers before you started eating or something to mark the beginning of the meal. Maybe if you're Jewish, you have a Friday night Shabbat supper, or on a Sunday, maybe you all sat down together and made a roast dinner to be together as a family. You might want to think about what kinds of pots and pans you used. Did you use colanders? Who was responsible for those kinds of things? Were frying pans used? This is a wok, so that's something that's a bit more modern, maybe from the 80s onwards. Unless you're Chinese, in which case maybe you grew up with that. Is that something you used to make a stir fry? Or were you more of a frying pan kind of a person, thinking about frying eggs and bacon for lunch? You might want to think about whether you or your family made bread. Did you bake bread yourself? Is that something you did instead of going to the shop? Maybe you thought about recipes and different kind of ways to make bread and other things at home. Did you bake cakes? Did you bake pies? Did other family members do that? And if so, what was your favourite? Which did you like best? And what did you have it with? We've got some recipes here from a previous project for how to make different kinds of bread. Maybe you could write a recipe down of your favourite dish and share it with a family member, or maybe you've got a recipe book that you've handed down over the generations that you'd like to share. It's also really good to think about where food comes from. So maybe you had a garden, and maybe you had an allotment, and maybe your family grew some of their own food. Do you remember if that was the case? Did you grow potatoes and cabbages? A really nice way to jog your memory about food and meal times is to have a rummage in old postcards and old photos. Chocolate, that's a favourite. Who doesn't like chocolate? Maybe you had little treats at home that you can remember. Why don't you make a list of those treats and sweets that you used to have? If you did, maybe you used to be able to go to the shop with pocket money and buy lots of little treats. What were your favourites? Were they chocolates or were they other kinds of boiled sweets, gobstoppers and chewing gum? A suggestion for an activity is to have an outing. Why don't you and some friends go out for a treat? You could go and have a cream tea or find somewhere where you can have tea and cake. Go somewhere with some friends where you can have a little outing and think about the kinds of things that you really like. If you went and had a cream tea and maybe you had a scone, would you put the cream on first or the jam on first That's quite controversial. And in fact, would you call it a scone or would you call it a scone? Think about the words that you use for things and whether that's something that's come from your family or from the region you grew up in, or that's something you've picked up along the way. Another nice activity is to think about the difference in what you used to like to eat and what you eat now. So food then and now. Have a think about what you used to love. Was there something you liked best when you were growing up? Was it sponge pudding with custard or a spotted dick? Was it a savoury dish? Did you like steak and kidney pie, for example? And what do you like now? What we eat now is very different, isn't it? Do you like pasta? Maybe you eat lasagna. Or perhaps you still like to stick to things that you liked then, like liver and kidneys and boiled potatoes. Have a think about the changes in your diet and also what your friends eat that's different from what they used to.